Awesome. So today we have Beverly from South Mountain Community Church in Utah. Beverly oversees their kids ministry and super excited she can be on here today to share some of her wisdom with us. Beverly, so good to chat. Can you tell me a bit about everything you do at your church and what called you into ministry and how you found your role at South Mountain Community Church?
All right. Well, first, thanks for having me on the show. And second of
Absolutely.
all, my role is we are one church with many locations, which many churches are today. And I'm not at the main church, I'm at one of our campuses. So I handle birth up to fifth grade. So I'm in charge of all of those areas. And I'm setting up the rooms, I'm setting up the curriculum, I'm recruiting the volunteers, I'm training the volunteers, I'm building the relationships. I'm also planning fun family get-togethers and team building activities and all the things that normally come along with ministry. The way I actually got started in ministry is kind of funny. I've been a longtime preschool teacher and I've always loved kids. I grew up in the church. I never helped in kids ministry really though. I was kind of too busy doing all the fun high school activities.
Mm-hmm.
I had walked away from the church for a while, and when I came back, well, what happened was someone invited my daughter, my second grade daughter, to a vacation Bible school. And
Okay.
because she brought the whole family to vacation Bible school, I was like, oh yeah, like what am I doing with my life? I need to get back in church. I need to be teaching my kids about Jesus. So because of someone having a good VBS and a good children's program, it affected
Mm.
me. So that was like our family getting back involved in church. And then later on, my daughter was in seventh grade and she came to me and she's like, we need to start serving in the kids ministry because one of my friends, their parents have to serve for 2 services because they're so short staffed. So do you think we can help them? So I'm like, sure, we can help them. I could do that. I could commit to serving once a weekend with my kids in my classroom. That would be awesome. And then as that happened, the church was like, hey, we have a position open. We'd really like you to apply for it. And the ironic thing was, because I had been divorced and I had made bad choices in my life, I felt like I would never be worthy to be on a church staff. So when the church invited me and wanted me, it made me feel like they really believed what the Bible said, that it was a church for the broken and the lost, and that anybody was welcome, and that your past wasn't who you are, that they saw you as Jesus did. So my daughter and I started serving, and then I joined the staff. And then I don't know if anybody knows this, but usually if a mom's on staff, her kids end up having to be on staff and her husband's on staff, but they're all unpaid staff. They're all helping,
Okay.
setting up stuff. So I have 4 kids and all of them help me. My oldest is 21 and my youngest is 9. And like
Okay.
going to church and setting up the classrooms and putting the toys out and cutting the crafts is all like how we spend our time together. But
Absolutely.
they truly enjoy it. So I was on staff at Saddleback Church and the nursery. I was a team assistant. We had a
Okay.
couple people on that team. So I was responsible there for setting up the baby areas, the toddler rooms, the 2-year-old rooms. And then I left California and I moved to Utah. And I just happened to be driving this random way to my new house and I saw a sign for South Mountain Community Church. So I checked it out online and they had Celebrate Recovery, which I was familiar with, and they offered divorce care, which was another program that I was familiar with. So I decided to check it out. And we went there and my family all loved it. They loved how close it was to our house. They loved how warm and engaging the people were. So we started volunteering there right when we got there. And then they had some changes. And once again, they're like, hey, we know that you have experience in kids ministry. Would you please apply for this position we have open? So that's how I became on staff at South Mountain Church. And I've been there for almost a year. September will be a year.
Oh, wow. Well, that is quite a story, Beverly, and thank you for being so open and sharing so much there. 2 threads I want to pull on there. One, the VBS kind of roping you and your family back into serving and being a part of the church. How did that affect the, kind of impact that VBS? Like, how did that make you realize that it's really important then to invest in VBSs because you just don't know quite how wide reaching the impact is? Like it's not like a box to check off like we did this summer. How did that alter the way you viewed it to really prioritize it on your list of things to do?
So we look at VBS as one of our outreach events. Like we don't have too many outreach events in kids ministry because a lot of times we're just trying to keep up with the week to week kids ministry. But VBS is where kids can bring neighbors from the community, and it's super fun
Hmm.
and super exciting. And then what the last couple of churches I've been attending have done is on Friday night, instead of doing the VBS during the day, they'll do a VBS family night where you bring your parents
Hmm.
and they get to see the things that you've learned and that you've made or the games you've played. And through doing that, you're bringing the parents onto your campus and you're getting to talk to them and get to know them, and they're getting to see their kids like light up and be super excited and helpful. And then the kids are dragging the parents to church. Like there's so many times that if we do things right, our kids are dragging our parents to church, which is how we win.
Okay. I love that idea of like the kids bringing their parents to church because it really is how you win, and it's like a win for a win because you are giving the kids are the next generation of your church, so investing in them right from the get go, and then getting the parents invested in the church as well is just outstanding. And glad to hear you've specifically like labeled it as an outreach activity. This is how we're going to reach more folks, and to like look at it through that lens of it being critically important. The other thing is, I love your story on, hey, I didn't think I was, fit for ministry, but here I am. And that's the thing. I think a lot of people in ministry are in those positions, and a lot of the people ever in the Bible, key characters in the Bible, obviously, maybe they didn't have exactly like stellar backgrounds per se, whatever you'd label stellar, because we are all flawed individuals. And with that in mind, how does that kind of make you prioritize and express like inclusiveness, and that you're here for folks that don't necessarily think they're qualified for ministry or something? How does that help how you communicate to those folks?
Well, one of our key points is that we want to build a relationship with the kids. The biggest thing
Hmm.
we could do, it's not necessarily about the Bible story, it's about knowing that kids have a safe and fun place where they can be seen and known. That's what we really want
Hmm.
them to do, because it's the relationship that keeps bringing them back. Usually it's the relationship that brings us all back, even adults. So I tell my volunteers, if you can just come and have fun and connect with the kid, that's the most important part of your job. The
Okay.
curriculum then comes second, because once a kid feels safe and known and loved, then they want to come back and then they want to ask questions. They want to know more about the Bible. But if they're not feeling those things in the beginning, then it's hard for them to listen to the story.
Absolutely. I love those core tenets, feeling safe, known, and loved, because that is, super important foundation for your minister to be operating on. And I love it that adds like the criteria for volunteer success. That is outstanding. And I'm sure that will help a lot of churches as they plan, like, hey, what should we really have our volunteers like core focus be? And that's kind of a segue into the next question is, being responsible for the kidsmen at your church. And a lot of stuff has changed in the scope of everything a kidsman leader is responsible for. You've got your in-person event, you've got stuff like VBS, you've got online ministry, which even as a lot of churches are regathered, lots of folks are still meeting online because a lot of people are still watching online. People are out of town sometimes. How do you manage to create and spread engaging kids ministry activities and such, both in person and online?
Well, the in-person is super easy. We use Orange Curriculum, so they give you lots of fun and engaging products to use at home. And then here in Utah, people love to travel all summer long. So even though we've been back in person for a while, we still have so many people out of town, but we don't want to miss those families, or even people that
Hmm.
still have a sick person at home and can't make it to church. We still want to include them. So we're still through Playlister, you can send out the email with the link for the
Mm-hmm.
videos. So we'll change up the videos. We'll throw a few things in there because using Playlister has made it so much easier to edit my video content and change it to what I want it to be. And then the link is super easy. I just set it up in MailChimp so people are still getting it. It's super, or I'll even have, I had a parent the other day say, hey, my kid comes home and he's singing this song and I want to know what song it is. And then I just send them the link that they would have gotten in the email and been like, here, you can now watch this at home and you can talk to your kids about it. So it's worked out amazing for our church to be able to use the Playlister app to engage with people at home and at church.
Awesome. Well, that is exciting to hear. And, we are honored to be able to be the tool you can use to connect with them in both spaces. And I'm curious, does that kind of make it easier to manage like the time? Because we know if you're responsible for the in-person and online ministry, that's kind of taking your role from prepping volunteers, coordinating the in-person stuff, to doing that and like editing videos, sending stuff out. So I'm curious, how much clock time do you think it's kind of saved you, since you can just use the videos in Playlister and send those out to folks at home too, instead of having to like do a ton of video editing and use other stuff?
I was just having lunch with my friend and I was telling her about this podcast and how I love Playlister because it's given me so many hours back a month. I want to say
Okay.
I probably have 4 to 8 hours back a month that it's worth my
Oh,
time. My time is so valuable and the cost of it has made it so like it's affordable that I'm like, I'm getting my time back for this low price. And it's so easy to use for the volunteers in the classroom. I love that I could save lessons, I could save songs from before. It's like there's a song that the kids loved 2 months ago. I could throw it in every once in a while just to spruce things up, and the kids love that.
awesome. Well, that is exciting to hear. 4 to 8 hours, that is a lot of time. So we are glad we can give you that back and you can focus on like the actual parts of ministry. So happy to do that, Beverly, and excited to hear we are making an impact. So shifting gears a bit, it sounds like you've worked with a lot of very outstanding ministries. You mentioned working as part of the team at Saddleback and now at South Mountain. So you've gotten to see different environments. I'm curious, what are some of the key values or principles either you or your whole team kind of operate by?
Well, usually safety and security for our children is always number one because if we don't have a safe and secure environment, like that's the foundation of everything else. And then South Mountain
Mhm.
has some really good programs like you can belong before you believe because a lot of
Okay.
people, especially here in Utah, are trying to figure out if they're coming out of a former religion or they were raised around a certain religion and they don't really know what is true. We need to give them a
Mm.
safe time to process that. And a lot of times I can have my kids will bring their friends to church and they want to come and help in a classroom as an assistant. And as they're
Mhm.
sitting there, they're like, hey, this story is a little different than when I was told. Like, can you tell me more about it? So by creating this safe, fun environment, everyone's learning. The leaders are learning, the kids are learning, everyone's growing in their faith. We also want people to be adaptable because sometimes, as we all know in kids ministry, things don't go the way that we had planned, or something
Uh,
happens and we have to be flexible and just go with the punches. And we want people to, we believe that God changes people from the inside out. So we try to be patient with people. A lot of times we have people that are new to our type of church, so they don't know what to expect, or kids who are a little afraid. So we try to just meet people where they are and then love them
mhm.
there and love them well.
Absolutely. And I love that, belong before you believe. One, because I'm a fan of alliteration. And that's great that you can make that work. But two, it is so amazing because people, I think it was the New York Times, which is like not where you'd think a media outlet that would vouch for churches might immediately come from, but they posted an article a couple of years ago about how churches are essential for American society for just the communal aspect, even if you don't even look at all the other more important things that the church does in that community. And so giving folks that aren't quite believing yet a chance to belong before they believe is really outstanding. And I love how that is something that you are focusing on in your values to meet people where they are. You know, that is absolutely outstanding. And yeah, I'm sure a lot of folks will maybe even steal that name because it's really good. But just that's a spectacular way to reach people. And glad to hear that is one of your core focuses. So that is very awesome to know. And that kind of goes into another question I had, Beverly, which is what are some of your short term and long term ministry goals?
Well, I feel like I tell my husband, because he works in the restaurant business, that the restaurant business and children's ministry are kind of in the same boat right now where we don't have enough workers, but we have a lot of
Hmm.
people who want to be fed. So
Okay.
we're trying to figure out how to make this work. So here in Utah, a lot of restaurants have signs that are like, please be patient with our staff. Like since COVID, we've been short staffed. And I
Hmm.
feel that a lot of kids ministry leaders are struggling right now. It's so hard to get volunteers back after coming back after COVID, but we still have new families wanting to check our church out. So just trying to maintain our standard of having a fun, engaging experience for the kids with leaders who are fun to be around, who are knowledgeable, who are patient
Hmm.
and kind has been difficult. It's been really
Hmm.
difficult. So my first stop is just trying to get like rebuilt. Basically, we're all rebuilding right now after COVID. We've never been through a pandemic. People are
Hmm.
still a little scared. So how do we do this together? So I was struggling for a while. I was feeling alone and discouraged. Like I can't get people to serve. I have these kids that want to learn. And I reached out to some other people in my position. And then it just made me feel better knowing I wasn't alone, that we're all in
Hmm.
the same boat together, and that like we're going to get through it. God's never let us down. We may not know what it looks like. We may be living moment to moment, but God will be faithful to provide. So my short-term goal is
Excellent.
just trying to rebuild my team right now and get some new people in. This weekend we
Okay.
did an open house where we invited anybody who was interested in learning about children or student services to come, and we kind of told them how we do things and what would we expect from them. And we had 12
Hmm.
new people sign up to test drive, like take a
Oh,
tour in
wow.
a classroom, which is amazing. Like I want to shout it from the rooftop because coming from COVID, like to have 12 adults who aren't already serving be interested
Hmm.
in taking that next step in their faith journey is amazing. And then my long-term goals would just be to be able to build out more of my ministry. Like right now, we're only doing Sunday mornings for our kids and then some summer activities and maybe once a quarter family activities like a trunk or treat
Hmm.
event or an Easter event. But I want to start trying to add in a weeknight program for kids. Like I want
Hmm.
kids, if they can't make it on Sunday, or if they want to bring a friend that can't come on Sunday because they're not allowed to, then they can come on a Wednesday. And this summer we did a Bible study for parents with free childcare. And normally when we do childcare at our church, it was just people playing with kids, playing games, having fun. But I had this idea because Playlister is so easy to use. And Orange gives you so much curriculum. I took their so show and I took some of our dances and I took some of their activities and I spread the content out over two. So we were reinforcing what the kids were learning on Sunday on Wednesday night. And the kids loved it because it was funny and engaging. And then my volunteers loved it because it gave them something to do instead of just playing games for an hour and a half. They had content for 30 minutes and organized games to help their time pass faster too.
Oh, wow. I mean, that is outstanding. And two big takeaways there you just mentioned, Beverly. One in the short-term goal focus, like maintaining that standard of excellence and just the engaging, the fun, the loving environments where all the kids are cared for and everything. Like that is super important. There's a book called "The Score Takes Care of Itself" by the coach that turned around the 49ers from a really like horrible football team to one that got multiple Super Bowl victories. And it's just like, hey, if you focus on the fundamentals of what makes your ministry great, your organization great. Whatever your end goal is going to take care of itself. Just to focus on those fundamentals, and definitely, as you showed, applies to ministry, not just football. So then the other thing, like expanding your ministry, just honing in on maybe like one starting point, like that midweek ministry service, the midweek kids time. Just pick one thing, try that out, see how it goes. No need to chart up like an intricate, like 48-step checklist to say we're going to do all these elaborate tasks, and then none of it works out because it was like too complicated. But just, hey, we're going to do this. We're going to do consistently this one thing. And really excited to see how that will help out at South Mountain. We are rooting for you as you keep going, keep maintaining an awesome ministry, and trying new things. So really excited to see what the future holds there, Beverly. And with that said, what other advice would you offer to ministry leaders?
My other advice besides get Playlister, because you'll be so happy you did. You will stop dreading setting up the videos. Like, and even if I forget, like on Saturday night, I'm like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot about my videos. I can open my laptop at home on my couch, and within 5 minutes, I've updated everything. Or if you're an A-type personality, which I am not, you can plan them out like for a whole month in advance. So you just sit down, and while you're in that mode, you just get it all cranked out. That has been super helpful. And then my other thing is just for people in my position to reach out to community. If you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling frustrated, if you're feeling burnout, find someone to talk to, because what we do is very difficult. Loving people requires us of giving of ourselves, and it's hard, but then even more so when you don't have the supplies you need, like volunteers, it makes it even more challenging. But we can't lose sight of what we're doing, because it is so important. Our kingdom work is so important, and we never know, like with my story, if one church didn't set up VBS and my kid didn't get invited by her friend, I don't know if I would be sitting here today. So we don't always get to see the impact of what we do in kids ministry, because a lot of times it takes a long time for the story to play out. But just know that what you're doing, it does matter. Even if you don't feel seen right now, God is working in you.
Absolutely. And that is some outstanding advice, Beverly, because you really can't measure the impact of your ministry like to a number. And you mentioned your story. Hey, if your daughter didn't get invited to VBS a long time ago, you might not have gotten called into ministry. And so you never know who you might be reaching just from the kind of network effects of your church events and community outreach. So outreach is definitely super important, and you shared some outstanding tips for it. So really excited to share these with our partners, and wanted to thank you for sharing so much today, Beverly.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being part of my show, or part of my show. That's so funny. Thanks for inviting me to be a part of your show. And thank you for making Playlister, because that seriously has changed my life for the better.
Well, that is great to hear, Beverly. We appreciate the chance to help, and we made it at our church for the church, and glad to be able to contribute in your ministry and others.